When we sabotage our results, where we emotionally eat or we go to a full out binge, there's a lot of shame and guilt that come along with that. And it's like, we know we don't want to do it, but we end up doing it. And we're doing it because we're sad or we're angry or disappointed for some reason. We use the food to fill the void, and then we feel even worse. And then sometimes while we're feeling worse, then we go and we eat more. And it's like, there's so much judgment that comes with that. And so when I was able to look at sabotage and look at those behaviors as a learned thing, that it was literally like totally a mental, emotional state of a time when I experienced something that was so overwhelming, I stored it and it just hung out with me. Or it was conditioning of how I learned how to deal with things and learned how to self-soothe that was like embodying my physical body now. When I got it, that it was an inner child or a traumatic experience that was animating my body in the now moment to get me to do these things with food to make myself feel better, I was like, okay, now I'm not going to feel bad about my sabotaging behavior because now I understand the mechanics. How can I work with that as the emotion to bring up the memory or to bring up the meaning I made about myself? So then I can go through a forgiveness process, either from a perpetrator or a wounding, or release the cycle abuse that I was inflicting on myself.
Welcome to 𝗦𝗲𝗄 podcast, where I share with you the mindset, energetics, emotional intelligence, and habits required to transform your health and manifest your dream body. I'm your host, 𝗤𝗲𝗄, a 20-plus year fitness professional, lifelong entrepreneur, and I have self-healed my chronic pain and my emotional eating. And I am here to share with you the spiritual and the practical so you can transform your health and manifest your dream body.
Check this out. This is why we're talking about this tonight. How to install the mind-body program of self-worth. Already had like 14 views or like 14 watches on YouTube, like really fast after I uploaded it. And so that tells me that people want to hear either about self-worth or they want to hear about installing, looking at mindsets and feelings as an installation process. And so I want to share, go along with that framework and talk about the mental, emotional operating system of self-acceptance and how food reflects it. And before we get started, I want to make sure that you know that finally how to get your brain on board and energy behind the habits to get the hottest body of your freaking life. This is a 21-day program. It's free. It's in my Body Energetics group. We had call number 4 today. It was postponed from last week. There's going to be 7 calls total, and you have access to all the information 21 days after we complete our 21 days. So it is going to be over on February 15th, but you have 21 days after that to go through the material. And you're really along for the ride for things that I'm going to be creating, because this 21-day program is going to turn into a low ticket offer. So what it's going to be, it's going to turn into a monthly subscription that you can cancel at any time. It's going to be under $50. And I'm going to provide for you a framework that you can do every single week so that you can really get into the habit mastery, the self mastery required for you to make health and aesthetic changes. So it's really fun to like be part of something that's growing and behind the scenes, because you really get to add to it. And when you work with someone like me, who this is like their life purpose and they're really into it, this is what gets them out of bed in the morning. Whatever you have a question about and there's like a need that you have, I'm like, okay, that's going to go into it. That's something that needs to be included. So it's a really great time for you to get coaching from me. It's for free. And I don't want to make it a big deal about it being for free, but it's like, it's such a cool opportunity. And like, I know that like for me, before I had money to invest in mindset stuff or energy stuff or anything like that, it's like such an abstract, weird thing that like, there's no guarantee because you have to be able to be in a space where you can comprehend it. And so to invest in it, it's pretty challenging. And so I want to share that with you so that you have an opportunity to learn this stuff for free, because it is kind of an abstract way to look at things. So you can go to bodyenergetics.com/finally to get the email, to come onto the email list so that you can get links to the Zooms. Because what I'm doing is I'm doing a Zoom coaching call where I'm going to teach the lesson. It's also live streamed into my free group. But if you're on Zoom, then we can do hot seat coaching in a conversation versus you just commenting on the replay. So you'll go to bodyenergetics.com/finally if you want to participate in it while we are live. Call number 5 is going to be on Thursday, February 9th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So today we are talking about the mental emotional operating system of self-acceptance and how food reflects it. Now, what I want to share with you is a little bit of like how all this stuff is connected, because self-acceptance is like a learned behavior, and it goes into attachment styles of how we connect with a romantic partner, but also it goes into attachment styles of relationship with everything: career, money, finance, status, exercise, diet, food. And it's manufactured in the brain of the subconscious mind, where we're learning patterns. It's like the unconscious mind is the root programming, like your iOS system. The subconscious mind is the application for how things then show up on your computer screen. And it's like your conscious mind is the computer screen. And the reason I think that my mind goes into this kind of metaphor is because I lived so much not being in touch with my feelings and being triggered emotionally, but not having an internal dialogue to articulate how I was feeling. So a lot of my sabotage actually was symptomatic of pain, of tension, of illnesses, of flares. And that's something that's a psychosomatic issue. And Dr. John Sarno is he has a lot of really great books that you can really dive into that to hear how the body has this sabotage pattern, not us actually eating or giving up and like numbing out on the couch or whatever. So when I learned that I needed to get in touch with my feelings, because I didn't feel this like touchy-feely, whimsical storytelling type of a way for myself, even though I presented that a lot on the internet because I was trying to present myself in a certain way, which was part of my attachment style. When I got to see analogies and how these mental and emotional identities were working as functions as a computer, then it was like I can look at the parts and pull the parts apart, rework them as tools, because emotion is chemical from the brain and emotion is vibration from your heart. I was like, I can work with my feelings in this way, work on the emotion, and then let the memory come up for me to actually like work through the forgiveness process and do that inner child and inner work journey. So the sharing with you of this as an operating system, in my experience, it really took a lot of the pressure off of habit change and a lot of the pressure off of sabotage, because it's like when we sabotage our results, where we emotionally eat or we go to a full out binge, there's a lot of shame and guilt that come along with that. And it's like, we know we don't want to do it, but we end up doing it. And we're doing it because we're sad or we're angry or disappointed for some reason. We use the food to fill the void, and then we feel even worse. And then sometimes while we're feeling worse, then we go and we eat more. And it's like, there's so much judgment that comes with that. And so when I was able to look at sabotage and look at those behaviors as a learned thing, that it was literally like totally a mental, emotional state of a time when I experienced something that was so overwhelming, I stored it and it just hung out with me, or it was conditioning of how I learned how to deal with things and learned how to self-soothe that was like embodying my physical body now. When I got it, that it was an inner child or a traumatic experience that was animating my body in the now moment to get me to do these things with food to make myself feel better, I was like, okay, now I'm not going to feel bad about my sabotaging behavior because now I understand the mechanics. How can I work with that as the emotion to bring up the memory or to bring up the meaning I made about myself? So then I can go through a forgiveness process, either from a perpetrator or a wounding, or release the cycle abuse that I was inflicting on myself. So I think that that's resonating, that we had so many listens. This is a brand new podcast this year, that we had so many listens so quickly after I did about the mental emotional operating system of self-worth. So let's get into it. And the other thing, I got a little bit tangenty. The other thing that I wanted to share with you of how this is part of the subconscious mind of patterning, that the unconscious is the root, the subconscious is like the branches, the pattern, and then the conscious is the leaves or the flowers. The conscious is that computer screen, the subconscious is the application, and the unconscious is the iOS system. That's how the brain is functioning for us to have the experience and the conscious thought. And it also relates to the sacral chakra. Self-acceptance relates to the sacral chakra, the energy center that is a lot of feminine energetics, that's about emotions and about connection. And this is relevant because if you know anything about the subconscious mind, or if you know anything about the sacral chakra, you can, and you're still having issues with food, you can apply this stuff with what you've already studied with the subconscious mind and with the sacral chakra. So I always like to say that, so that if you have experience in other ways of using these systems within your body, this is the application for it with food and diet and exercise. So I got 3 topics for you. Number 1, learning to surf. Number 2, attachment styles. And then number 3, a wrecking ball. So 3 things that I want you to really wrap your brain around when you're dealing with this in your life, when we're looking at your relationship with food. So first of all, what I want to share with you is that learning to surf is something that I keep in mind all the time. That number 1, we're surfing the wave of emotion. We are not our emotions. When we were in human conditioning of that 0 to 7, or when we experienced something that was so overwhelming for our system, we stored the emotion in the unconscious. It's still active. The molecules of emotion that match it are still secreting from the subconscious mind. Our vibrational field is still acting in that stored emotion, but because it was too much for us to mentally process and make sense of, we're unaware of it. So we're riding the wave of an emotion and doing our very best not to make it mean anything about us. And the mind-body connection's job is to interpret the emotion, the vibration that the physical body is experiencing in the 3D plane of Earth, where we're human. Its job is to interpret that vibration and make a meaning about it to keep the body alive. And because we have self-worth attached to our body, from societal conditioning, just look at our commercials and in society and being sexy and what all that means about our worth and about our status. The brain's job is to create a meaning about the worth of the human and about the safety of the body. So if we can start to know that this is the function, when we encounter an emotion that's triggering, we've got to get into the ocean and be like, I'm riding a wave. I am riding a wave. This does not mean something about me. The other thing that I think about with the ocean and learning to surf is that we should not confuse ourselves with the wave. And this is a beautiful lecture from oh my God, I can't remember his name now. Gordon Peterson? Jeff Gordon, I don't know. Akira the Don is one of my favorite music producers, and he takes lectures and talks like from Joe Rogan and Alan Watts and a bunch of other people, and he mixes them to this like really cool techno music. And there was a song, Jordan B. Peterson, that's his name. Jordan B. Peterson, and there's a song called The Wave. And he says a surfer doesn't confuse himself with the wave. And there's a metaphor of God that we are not a drop of the ocean. We are not even a spray from the sea spray. Or we're not a wave. We're not even a drop of the sea spray. We are the whole ocean. This is the universal law of one. We are all one energetic field, but it's our point of focus that separates us. And it's the human experience that's separated by skin that separates us. But energetically, we are all one unit. So don't confuse this physical body as being separate. We are part of it. And the last thing that I want to share with you about learning to surf is that this shit is hard. There is a paddling time where you are paddling out to get to that wave so that you can get on the wave to then ride it. The internal work is difficult to get through in the beginning, but every time you find a memory or you find a meaning about the feeling you're having because of an emotion that's chemically secreting from your brain or vibrationally stored in your field, in your body, you get another layer of awareness. You get to watch the mental and emotional mechanics of your behavior and your pattern. You become more self-aware. And when you have that happen, it is uncomfortable because your brain is switching what chemicals are secreting. Your vibrational field is shifting. You are literally shifting in the field, in the ocean. You're changing your atomic structure. This is how deep it goes. So it's uncomfortable. And nerve cells that fire together wire together. So when you have an awareness of a mental and emotional operating system that you don't want to be doing anymore by your habits, because our habits and what we actually do and say with our words and with our body, they reinforce the mental and emotional operating system. So when we do this work and we're paddling out to the wave, and then we get to a wave and we see a pattern, we have the choice to like ride that wave and ride that pattern, or be like, actually, this is not what I want to do. I want that wave over there. So then it's like, okay, like this isn't the wave we want, right? So it passes you by. And then you got to paddle even more to get to that bigger wave that's out there in the distance. That's even harder because those nerve cells that fire together, you're not letting them wire together anymore. You're creating new neurological pathways. This is hard. You're creating a new meaning about the emotion. You have to constantly let the meaning or the memory go. You have to live in a state of forgiveness when you feel that emotion, when you remember all the times that you screwed up your diet and you've sabotaged yourself, when you remember all the matching times to this feeling that someone made you feel that way and disempowered you, made you not accept yourself. So I had a wobble. I had some stuff that happened last week. I got triggered over the weekend watching the Grammys. And then I had this amazing conversation with Katie Townsend, which was yesterday's podcast. Go listen to it if you haven't listened to it. And it's like, I got reminded, yeah, I see this the same way. She sees attachment theory and inner child with money and career the same way I see it with money, the same way I see it with diet and exercise and food. So it was like, I had to be in an uncomfortable state of creating a new mental and emotional identity by the observation of myself, of a pattern that I had, that I became aware of, then have feelings come up that were triggered watching the Grammys, then have to not sabotage myself and not let myself feel disempowered and that I wasn't good enough and I wasn't doing a good job, to not do a good job in my workday on Monday. Because I'm not sabotaging myself with food. The place where I'm going to put my sabotage is now with my business. So it was really uncomfortable yesterday. And I pushed through and I did my own internal work. It's the same internal work that I gave everybody. And finally today, I went through the whole process again for myself to recalibrate into a new mental and emotional identity. And I'm like, okay. And then eventually what has already started to happen today was, it's like, now I'm surfing the wave. Now I've got a new mental and emotional and physical operating system that now, okay, like today felt a little bit more like I was coasting. So now all I have to do is reflect back to the inner work that I did for finally. So it's too much to list right here. So you'll definitely have to come into the Body Energetics Facebook group if you want to see it. But once I saw, okay, now what do I want next? How do I want to feel next? What are the thoughts I'm going to have next? What are the actions I'm going to take next? Now I have a whole new operating system. So now it's my job to reinforce that by following through with that stuff. And then I'm going to hit another edge. Because every time we change these mental and emotional identities, we hit another edge. So learning to surf. Hope that wasn't too much for you. That's one of the ways that I think about this. Now, self-acceptance and the attachment styles. This is point number 2. And what I want to share with you here is that when we are in that 0 to 7 of conditioning, or when we have a significant emotional event and we suffer feminine energetic wounds of rejection or abandonment, this is going to turn us into a not enough feeling. And the not enough feeling, right? I'm not good enough. So my caregiver, or this memory that I have of rejection or abandonment, it stays in us as the feeling. So remember, we have not enough molecules of emotion always secreting from our brain because it's unconscious. We have the vibration. So we unconsciously are attracting things to us, and our subconscious mind is printing out the information of not enough. So the mirrored universe, how it works, is now reflecting back to us these unconscious emotional feelings. The mindset, the conscious thought that goes with the feeling is, I have to do more, I have to achieve so that I won't be rejected, so that I will be accepted, so that I won't be abandoned, so that the person will want to be with me. Our caregiver will want me. So attachment styles happen mostly from that relationship building process that we have with our caregivers. And if we're feeling rejected, if we're feeling abandoned, if we were if in real life, not made up in our head, not misinterpreted from a little child brain, if we were actually discarded, dismissed, invalidated, rejected, told, go away, I don't like you, if the parent left and severed the relationship, the mindset to the feeling is, well, what do I need to do to make you come back? What do I need to do to make us be together. So the not enough feeling because we're rejected or abandoned makes us then swing like a wrecking ball into overachievement, doing, performing to get that love connection from the caregiver. And attachment theory goes into how we attach with our romantic partner. So we've got the anxious style that you're like, if you don't hear from them every 5 minutes, surely they're cheating on you. You got the avoidance style, where as soon as you feel close to someone, you're like, oh shit, this isn't good. And you find reasons to make the relationship fall apart. Then you have the secure style, which is what we're all aiming for, where you know you don't need that constant affirmation from the person, where you don't push the person away. And, you know, the episode with Katie yesterday and how I think of this too, is that then we start to see the attachment styles with the things in our life. So the things in our life that we're struggling with, we're now made those things the person who abandoned or rejected us in that caregiving relationship building phase. And we idolize the thing, we idolize the diet, we idolize the food, we idolize the body image. And the ironic thing is that the caregiver who made us feel this way is our victimizer, is our perpetrator, whether they meant to do it or not, whether it was their learned behavior or not, regardless of the why behind it. The outcome is they become the perpetrator to our wounding. And then we're trying to do everything to get this perpetrator to love us. How it translates into the food is that we're looking at the strategy of diet. And as soon as we get triggered, whatever attachment style we go into, if we're avoidant, we're like, diet doesn't work. The strategy doesn't work. It's not for me. I'm not going to do it. Doesn't work. If we get triggered and we go into anxious, we obsess over the food. And because we're not feeling enough, if we're in the rejection, or if our impulse is, I don't feel enough, if that's like the mindset feeling, we obsess over the food, high restriction until we can't take it anymore. But then we use the food to fill the void, and we use the food to get that chemical dump. So that one's a very odd behavior that we have, because we can be super obsessive and be really strict until a certain point. Or we could be super obsessive, not have any time that we're sticking with anything strategically to get any results, but we're obsessed about the food, and we're constantly using the food to get that chemical hit and to fill the void. And when we're struggling with self-acceptance, and our focal point is, when I look a certain way, when I get the body in a certain condition, then I'll feel good going into the board meeting. Then I'll feel good going into the gym. Then I'll feel good having sex with the lights on. Then I'll feel good and I'll want to date. Then I'll feel good and then I'll want to go on vacation. Then I'll feel good and then I'll finally want to get married and put on the dress. So we've turned the food and the diet into the thing that's then going to give us the external validation of acceptance, that in the base of who you are, in the core of who you are in your brain and your mental and emotional operating system, is about the attachment with the caregiver. And this stuff is so deep, and this is why the sabotage is so difficult, and this is why so many people are not healthy, and they use food as their outlet, and they don't know why. And it's like they want it so bad. Like, we want to be fit and we want to be able to eat healthy, but it just feels impossible. And this is why, because it's deep stuff that goes into the mechanics of how we become a co-creator on this 3D plane. Because when we're using the law of one, that we are all connected, that it's our focus, our point of focus that separates us so that consciousness can have different experiences. Like if we're all God, because we're all fragments, we're all one, right? If we're all one, we're all God. So if we're all one, but we have separated consciousnesses so that this law of one energetic field can have an evolving experience. The 3D field is where we're human. We've got the masculine energetics in our conscious mind. We've got the feminine energetics in our subconscious mind. Our unconscious mind is where the seat of the soul is. And it's us that decide what we're going to do with these mechanics. It goes into the conscious masculine energetics is a positive proton of a subatomic part, that the feminine energetics in the subconscious mind is a negative electron as a subatomic part. And then we at the seat of the soul is the neutron that then decides what's going to come of this atomic structure. So when you change, you're actually radioactive, because as you're making different decisions, your atoms are spitting out excess protons or electrons. When you're neutralizing your over masculine energetics of doing and doing and doing, and the shame and guilt that masculine energetics brings, or you're spitting out a bunch of electrons of the feminine energetics of sadness and disappointment when there's too much going on with the feminine energetics. So you see people transform and look younger and more vibrant. It's because they're getting rid of this extra stuff. So if you can start to look at this as a mechanic, you won't get so overwhelmed with the feelings that you have when you get triggered that cause the mindset to click, that then cause the sabotage. That's the power of knowing how this works. And this is stuff that's like, is in spiritual books that we all have access to. If you have access to a computer, you have access to these spiritual books. They've gotten distorted, or if everybody knew this stuff, we would have a totally free society with no power struggle. People like power. So it's like knowing this, and if this is new to you and this like might be a little overwhelming, let this just sink in. Like maybe listen to this a few more times, because the only thing that you really need to do is allow this to come into your awareness. Maybe stop watching something negative and start listening to stuff like this to expand your awareness of how it is to work with energy, and do brain and heart coherence breathing. That's at bodyenergetics.com. The brain and heart coherence breathing is how you slow the reaction time from trigger to action. It's doing things energetically with your heart chakra and your high heart that has to do with your energetic light body. It's doing stuff with your nervous system and your heart and your brain. It's doing something to change the molecules that are secreting from your brain. So you're actually creating a different body, a healthier body from the inside out. It's changing your electromagnetic field. It's going to change what's attracted to you. It's going to change what your subconscious mind is printing. And when you're doing the brain and heart coherence breathing, it's only 3 minutes a day. That's the research from Heart Math Institute. 3 minutes a day. That's it. And if you practice the 3 minutes a day and you live your life, you're creating a new system in your body. And then when you get triggered, Instead of the trigger and your body marrying each other and completely identifying with that emotion and creating a meaning instantly about the feelings that that thing just triggered you to do, instead of that happening instantly, you have some space in between to think. And you're like, oh my God, I want to go eat a handful of M&Ms. Wait a minute. Why am I reaching for a handful of M&Ms? Wait, something happened. If I'm reaching for food, what did Lauren say? Something must have happened. What just happened? Who did I just talk to? What did I just watch? Where was I? Because you can go to a different building, you can drive by somewhere, and the physical memory that the body has, right? Because the mind-body connection with the environment is to figure out if it's safe or unsafe. So you could go to a grocery store 3 hours from your house that has a same pavement, or like it had different flowers blooming to the area that you're usually around. And it reminds you of a time when you were a kid, when something happened where it could have been something silly. You could have tripped and hit your face and somebody could have laughed at you, and that could have stuck with you to make you feel silly. You could have been hurting and bleeding and really sad, and whoever you were with said, get over it. Come on, let's go. We got to go. Wipe your face. So you're kind of invalidated in that moment. So you could go to a grocery store 3 hours from where you usually do your grocery shopping. There could be a flower blooming, pollen, that is the same smell as that event that happened when you were a kid, where you fell, you got hurt, nobody comforted you, you were dismissed. And because that feeling in your body created a mind-body connection, a meaning about you and your self-worth, whenever you smell that pollen, you're in that mental emotional identity. And you're going to reach for the food because that's going to give you a chemical high from the chocolate or whatever it is. And it's going to give you a feeling of vibrational safety and groundedness. That's how crazy this is. That's that's energy. So do the brain and heart coherence breathing. Listen to this again. Think about how you attach to things. Do you feel anxious and you get obsessive? You feel like it's going to go away? Do you get avoidant, where you think it's stupid and you pick it apart and you find problems with it, and then you move on? Or do you feel secure? If you can go through those attachment styles and kind of look at categories of life, your relationships, your romance, the relationship with your parents, with your kids, with your colleagues, how you feel about money, how you feel about your hair, how you feel about plastic surgery, how you feel about diet, food, exercise, cars. Look up the categories of life, the life wheel. Let me look it up for you. Let's do this really quick. Wheel of life. Okay. This is your homework. Number 1, brain and heart coherence breathing, 3 minutes a day. Go to bodyenergetics.com. Number 2, how are you showing up with attachment styles? Career, finance, personal growth, health, family, relationships, social life, attitude. What does another one say? Physical environment, business, career, finances, health, family and friends, romance, personal growth, fun and recreation. Do those 2 things, because then you're going to heighten your awareness. So mentally, you're giving different thoughts and different mindsets and different self-awareness to look at how you're accepting yourself. Because if you're attached anxiously or avoidantly to diet, food, and exercise, you're using those things to get that external validation as if they were the caregiver that did not give you what you needed, that rejected you or abandoned you or made you or made you feel shame, made you feel guilt. And so you're doing the things with the diet, food, and exercise to try to make up for that feeling or to reinforce it. So if you can look at those ways, look at those categories of life, because sometimes diet, food, and exercise, sometimes the area that you're really stuck on is too hard to actually look at. So you can look at it in other areas. That's going to give you more awareness of how you're looking for the self-acceptance. And then the brain and heart coherence breathing is going to change the chemicals, and it's going to change the vibration with your body, and it's going to change your nervous system. So then you actually have time to respond. Now you're creating choice for yourself. So I want you to try that out. Shoot me a direct message on Instagram. It's 𝗫𝗏𝗃𝗃. Send me an email, lauren@lauren-sarah-cione.com. Comment on the live stream for this. This is February 7th. So if you go to my Facebook page, you can scroll through this. Like, let me know how this landed. And if I see the same amount of quick downloads for this one as I did for how to install the mind body program of self-worth, we're going to keep going with this theme. I think it's really significant, and it's really going to help us really learn how to feel better, how to be in control of our mind, of our emotions, and of our body through the application of how we're dealing with self-worth and self-acceptance through the body with the diet, food, and exercise. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to listen to the whole outro if you're catching this on YouTube or you're catching this on your podcast player, so that you can hear from some of the ladies that were in the very first Queen's Gambit, my 12-month diet, exercise, mindset transformation program. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, please share it on social media and tag me at It's Lauren Sarah Cione and at Queen Bold EQ. You can just search my name, Lauren Sarah Cione, on the IG, and you should find both of those handles, no problem. I'm going to leave you with a few little snippets of the ladies who were in the very first Queen's Gambit with me. The Queen's Gambit is my year-long transformation where I give you all the coaching you need for mindset, emotions, habits, diet, exercise, and self-care.
First of all, thank you for just giving of yourself and allowing us to be in this space today. That's been really amazing to just see like how much you're giving to us. So thank you for that.
Because I'm not gonna go shame myself anymore. I'm not gonna go fucking judge myself. I'm fucking over it. I'm so fucking done with that old game. It's just an old game. I'm not gonna play anymore.
Adding upper body has actually been really good. I enjoy it because I've always been so scared of it.
The energetic stuff like has been really great for me because I think that's like what my like soul was craving. Like I've been wanting to know more, but like where do I start? So this has been super great.
New identity, new person, new body.
And it was like I could never get past certain plateaus, but this makes so much sense.
Exercises go really well. It's so much fun to have finally a gym.
I remember because it was so significant to me. That was after COVID. It was really difficult for me to go back because I had gained weight. I felt really heavy after having been lighter, and through COVID and not working out. That day was really nice because you like encouraged me to like continue. When you told me, you're like, you're strong, sweetie, like you can go heavy, and I was like, really? That like helped me just kind of develop that confidence.
And I'm like, well, I'm gonna take responsibility for the mistake, but I'm not gonna like shaming or blaming or judging. It's not gonna help me take the responsibility. It just makes it like harder. So why the F should I like make it hard for yourself? Come on.